For many fans, The Hunger Games isn't just a young adult novel series or blockbuster movie trilogy. There are surely plenty of subtler themes to explore beneath the surface. Here are just a few things that only adults notice in The Hunger Games. Suzanne Collins, the author of the Hunger Games trilogy, has said she was initially inspired to write the series while flipping between reality TV programs and news footage of the Iraq War. This inspiration is pervasive in almost every element of Katniss's story, from the way she and Peeta heighten their supposed love for each other to attract sponsors during the games, to the extensive machinations that happen behind the scenes to force conflicts between players. While the premise of sending children to fight for televised sport was an obvious enough nod to reality shows for younger readers and viewers to understand, younger audiences might not catch the extent to which the games mimicked their real-life counterparts. The game makers manipulate the tribute surroundings to force conflicts, such as when Katniss is forced to flee her shelter in the 74th Games due to a forest fire and quickly finds herself in the vicinity of other tributes. What younger audiences may not realize is how much this mirrors the production of most reality TV programs, where producers may goad contestants into conflicts or might edit footage to make contestants more or less sympathetic to viewers. Katniss is a protagonist that defies gender roles and expectations. When audiences first meet Katniss, she's hunting to support her family, a task that typically is associated with men. Throughout their relationship, Katniss and Peeta continue to buck gender roles and display atypical personality traits. In their first games, Katniss is seen as the most viable District 12 tribute, despite Peeta's strength. While protecting her family is her prime motivation throughout the series, Katniss is also generally depicted as cool and analytical, whereas Peeta is often driven by emotion. Their skills and hobbies also defy gender expectations. Peeta enjoys decorating cakes at the bakery and becomes a skilled painter, while Katniss excels at hunting and trapping. They also subvert the damsel in distress trope throughout the series. Peeta is consistently the one who is in need of rescue, whether it's in the arena or when he's taken captive by the Capitol in Mockingjay. While Collins does a great job of fleshing out what makes each of Panem's districts unique, what some younger readers may not realize is that each district corresponds with resources and characteristics of real regions within the United States. For example, District 12 takes clear inspiration from Appalachia. Its main industry is coal mining, its natural features like wooded hills and green meadows are hallmarks of states like West Virginia and Kentucky, and the poverty faced by those in the seam is not unlike that experienced by people living in Appalachia today. Other districts also serve as loose interpretations of U.S. regions. For example, District 4 is located along the Pacific coast, and its residents are trained in skills like fishing and tying knots, while District 7 expands across the Pacific Northwest and largely exports lumber. It's no secret that the Hunger Games victors are traumatized from their time in the games. Katniss in particular exhibits textbook symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder. In Catching Fire, the act of hunting acts as a trigger for Katniss, and she sees the body of a tribute when she shoots an arrow at a wild turkey. At the beginning of Mockingjay, Katniss apparently has found ways to deal with her PTSD through coping mechanisms, such as repeating facts about herself to keep herself grounded in her own reality.
Start simple. Start with what you know is true. My name is Katniss Everdeen. My home is District 12.
Katniss isn't the only one who suffers from PTSD. After Peeta is psychologically tortured by the Capitol with hallucinogenic venom, he struggles to discern between memories he experienced and those fabricated by the Capitol. Finnick suggests that he ask Katniss whether his memories are, quote, real or not real, as an exercise that helps him regain the sense of reality he had lost. All of Panem's districts are forced to participate in the annual Hunger Games, but some districts have better chances than others. In Districts 1, 2, and 4, children are trained in special schools to be experts in combat and survival. Though this is technically forbidden, the wealthier districts are able to sidestep these rules due to their ties and former alliance with the Capitol. This inherent inequality is a lot more than just a figment of Suzanne Collins' dystopian universe. Barriers to resources, education, and wealth based on one's origins obviously exist in the real world as well. The careers also symbolize how people can be given institutional privilege but still be at the mercy of a harmful system. They might have more resources to train and prepare with, but they are still doomed to be pawns in the Capitol's games. One of the most memorable characters of the first Hunger Games novel is Rue. a young tribute from District 11. Katniss describes District 11 as one of the poorer districts of Panem. Its main industry is agriculture, and its residents live in even worse conditions than Katniss's home in the Seam. For most older readers and viewers, it's easy to connect the depictions of District 11 to the United States' own complicated history with slavery. While the books make note of how District 11 residents typically have dark skin and are forced to work under unjust conditions, the movies make the parallels between District 11 and slavery even more stark. When Peeta and Katniss first visit District 11 in Catching Fire, they see workers gathering cotton, a crop that historically relied on slave labor in the 19th century. Another parallel to slavery is that District 11's crops don't benefit their own people, but are instead sent to the capital. During the first games, Rue tells Katniss that District 11 citizens also often face harsh and violent punishments for small infractions, such as stealing food or borrowing equipment after working hours. After Peeta and Katniss give passionate speeches to District 11 citizens, they witness Panem's peacekeepers brutally assault a man who salutes Katniss in protest, a scene that's very reminiscent of racial and police violence that has persisted throughout U.S. history. Finnick Odair is a victor from District 4 who is forced back into the arena for Panem's 75th Hunger Games. When audiences first meet him in Catching Fire, he offers Katniss a sugar cube and mentions how she could have made gargantuan amounts of money in the capital if not for the Quarter Quell. When Katniss questions him on his wealth, he brushes her off and she responds with a winking nod to his line of work.
I haven't dealt in anything as common as money in years.
Well, then how do people pay for the pleasure of your company?
This conversation might go over the heads of younger viewers, but this exchange heavily implies that Finnick is a sex worker in the capital. While capital citizens know of Finnick's proclivity for seeing multiple partners during his visits to the capital, they just assume he's a free-spirited flirt. However, during the events of Mockingjay, Finnick reveals that Snow forced him to do sex work under the threat of harming his loved ones. After Haymitch's entire family was killed to make an example out of him, it's easy to understand why Finnick complied. Many of the victors were traumatized by their time in the games, but didn't have proper resources to manage it when they came back home to their districts. For example, Haymitch is seen as District 12's town drunkard and is rarely seen not drinking. In Catching Fire, Katniss learns that one of the reasons he started drinking was because President Snow murdered his family for Haymitch's rebellious actions during the games. While not really discussed in the films, Haymitch also suffered horrendous withdrawal upon arriving at District 13. Even after the Second Rebellion, Katniss remarks that Haymitch still drinks to cope with the pain of losing his family and friends during the war. Other previous victors also turned to substance abuse after their games. During the Quarter Quell and Catching Fire, the two tributes from District 6 are referred to as the Morphlings due to their drug of choice. Morphling was a powerful narcotic used throughout Panem and takes its name from its real-world counterpart, morphine. Joanna Mason also becomes dependent on the drug after she's tortured by the Capitol, even siphoning off Katniss's IV drip after her own supply is cut off. Gale quickly rises up the ranks within District 13's rebellion for his confident leadership and his role in evacuating District 12. He also has a penchant for thinking like the enemy, even foreshadowing that keeping all of the injured rebels in one place would leave them vulnerable to attack. The largest conflict between Katniss and Gale comes to a head during the rebellion, as Gale believes collateral damage is a necessary evil to win the war. Katniss, on the other hand, still believes killing innocent people is wrong even after her time in the games. When Gale devises a plan to take out District 2's peacekeepers in Mockingjay, Katniss protests that it would also kill innocent people. But Gale believes this loss of life would be justified because of the tactical losses sustained by the Capitol. Gale's philosophy on war ends up being the downfall of his relationship with Katniss. The bombs used to kill Capitol children and first responders at the end of Mockingjay are deployed by the rebellion and developed by Gale and Beetee. The moral conflict between Gale and Katniss comes to a head when Katniss holds Gale responsible for Prim's death, but close viewers and readers can see that their opposing ethics on war would have doomed their relationship even if Prim had survived the rebellion. Despite their name, the Peacekeepers regularly enact varying degrees of violence on the citizens they're supposed to protect. They are armed to the teeth with submachine guns, tactical rifles, and more, despite the fact that district citizens are mostly unarmed and harmless.
There were people fighting in the streets, and fires and peacekeepers were gunning them down, but the people were...
What? The people were what?
It's not hard to find examples of a militarized police state in our own world. Just this past summer, protests were often met by police forces whose equipment was more suitable for war than keeping the peace. The peacekeepers also serve as parallels for racial police violence in District 11. Peacekeepers are seen watching over workers gathering cotton and catching fire. Additionally, water cannons are used to incapacitate protesters in District 11, which is a direct reference to how police used fire hoses and water cannons against civilians during the civil rights movement. While most people know that Panem's geography loosely mirrors that of North America, the actual landscape of Panem is markedly different from real maps of the United States for a reason: climate change. While fans have debated about when exactly the events of the Hunger Games takes place, it's safe to say that the world of Panem exists in the not-too-distant future. And during Katniss's inner monologues, she makes references to a North America that existed before Panem, as well as the fact that District 12 had mined coal for hundreds of years in what had been called Appalachia. So what happened between now and then that led to the Hunger Games? In the first novel, Katniss lists a series of natural disasters that led to society's collapse, including floods, fires, and droughts. All of those environmental crises can be linked to climate change, some of which have already begun devastating parts of the United States. In the Hunger Games, Katniss explains that existing governments then went to war over scarce natural resources, and that Panem was formed in the wake of society's collapse. Check out one of our newest videos right here. Plus, even more Looper videos about your favorite movies are coming soon. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you don't miss a single one.